On the night of September 18th, the gates of Buckingham Palace closed under an air of unprecedented tension. Queen Consort Camilla was ordered by King Charles to leave the palace immediately. It all began with leaked evidence, handwritten letters, late-night phone calls, and even short but suggestive text messages that hinted she was still secretly in touch with Andrew Parker Bowles, her former lover and ex-husband. Only hours after the security report was presented, Charles's fury erupted, culminating in a shocking decision. Camilla had to go. The news spread like wildfire. British and international media ran bold headlines. The Queen Consort's secret ties exposed, and Charles throws Camilla out. The public quickly split into factions. Many insisted Camilla had betrayed the king's trust and dignity. Others remained skeptical, wondering if this was nothing more than a misunderstanding, an incomplete puzzle magnified by a public forever sensitive to the shadow of Andrew Parker Bowles. What made the scandal even more explosive was the reopening of old wounds. Andrew's name is not only tied to Camilla, it also revives the bitter memory of the love triangle with Diana. As those memories returned, Britain was left to ask, has the royal family's cycle of tragedy ever truly ended? Is this just a passing storm, or a sign that the throne is heading toward a deeper crisis? By dawn, as headlines declared that King Charles III had lost his temper and expelled Queen Camilla from the palace, questions began to swirl. Was this the impulsive outburst of a monarch worn down by illness? Or was it the surface of a secret long buried? To understand why a marriage once thought unshakable could fracture so violently, we must look back decades, back to the love triangle of Charles, Camilla, and Andrew Parker Bowles, where the seeds of today's scandal were sown. Camilla Shand was once a spirited woman, celebrated in London high society for her charm and wide circle of friends. She met Andrew Parker Bowles in the late 1960s and quickly became entangled in a passionate, complicated affair. Andrew, a dashing cavalry officer, was well known for his charisma and reputation with women. Their relationship was marked by breakups and reconciliations. Yet Andrew remained a central figure in Camilla's life. At the same time, she met and grew close to Prince Charles. It was the beginning of a double tragedy. One woman tied to two powerful men, sealing the royal family's fate with scandal that would never fade. When Charles married Diana Spencer in 1981, the world assumed Camilla had stepped aside, settling into her role as Andrew's wife. In reality, the affair continued. Secret phone calls, discreet meetings, and love letters carried on behind closed doors. The Camilla Gate scandal of the early 1990s, when intimate phone conversations between Charles and Camilla were leaked, became a stain that the monarchy could never erase. Yet what many overlooked was Andrew's lingering presence. Though divorced, though in the background, he never truly disappeared from Camilla's world. And now, after years of seeming calm, Andrew Parker Bowles' name has resurfaced. Security sources reveal that in the past 3 months, Camilla placed at least 27 calls to Andrew, 5 of them at midnight. These are not baseless rumors. Leaked phone logs confirm Camilla often dialed Andrew from Buckingham's landline. On some nights, even at 2 in the morning, she was still speaking to him while Charles slept in the next room. Was this merely old friends keeping in touch, or undeniable proof of a bond that never broke? Oh, damning of all was a letter, a handwritten note, short but haunting, reportedly from Camilla to Andrew. We will always be a part of each other's lives. Simple words, yet to a man like Charles, already betrayed once before, it was a blade to his honor. Royal experts quickly drew comparisons to the love letters exposed during Camilla Gate in 1993. Then, just a single phone call was enough to turn the monarchy into a global laughingstock. Now, history seems to be repeating itself, only with even more bitterness. What makes the story more suspicious is Camilla's apparent lack of caution. Guards close to her reported that she often demanded unusual privacy, locking herself away for hours, growing anxious whenever someone entered mid-conversation. Whispers of encrypted messages and secret emails circulated, though no one knows their full content. What is clear is that when word reached Charles, he could no longer contain himself. weary from illness. Weighed down by politics and public scrutiny, the king was suddenly forced to face the possibility that the woman he had defended for decades might still be tied to another man. Why would Camilla do such a thing? There are two main theories. The first is that she never truly let go of Andrew. After all, he was her first love, her former husband, the man who knew her better than anyone else. A bond that has lasted for half a century is not so easily erased, even after she became queen. The second theory is that Camilla may have been seeking comfort elsewhere. As her relationship with Charles grew colder, his declining health has made him irritable, and the quiet arguments behind Buckingham's walls may have left Camilla feeling desperately alone. In those moments, Andrew, the man who once shared her youth, suddenly became a place of emotional refuge. Whatever the reason, the consequences were unavoidable. The British press wasted no time amplifying the scandal. Headlines screamed across front pages, the Queen Consort's secret ties exposed, and Charles throws Camilla out. Online forums erupted with debate. One side condemned Camilla as a perpetual betrayer, the same woman who once tormented Diana and now betrays Charles. Others defended her, suggesting she may have been maintaining nothing more than a friendship, while the media blew the story out of proportion to bring her down. What chilled the public most was the sense of history repeating itself. In the 1990s, it was Diana who stood in the weakest position, betrayed by both Charles and Camilla. 3 decades later, it is Charles who faces the same bitter pain. The love triangle that once seemed closed has reopened in a new chapter, with Camilla and Andrew still entwined in the background. For the royal family, the old wound has never truly healed. Placed in today's context, the scandal becomes even heavier. Charles, now in his 70s, is frail with illness. More than ever, he needs a loyal companion by his side. Yet instead he finds himself trapped in a media nightmare. Camilla, once seen as his steadfast partner, has been recast as the lead figure in yet another scandal. And Andrew Parker Bowles, who seemed to have faded into obscurity, has returned like a shadow that cannot be banished. Looking back at the roots of the affair, one truth becomes clear. The events of September 18th were not an isolated incident. They were the result of decades of entangled love affairs, of ties that were never fully severed. A single letter, 27 phone calls, 5 of them at midnight. Numbers that may look small, but carried the force of a ticking time bomb, tearing apart the illusion of stability within the monarchy. And now, as the world questions Camilla's loyalty, it is also questioning the future of the throne itself. Can Charles remain steady enough to protect both his marriage and his honor? Or is he heading into a crisis unlike any before? Is Camilla simply a woman forever bound by her past? Or is she quietly nurturing a far more deliberate power play? The origins of this drama reveal one clear fact. Every storm today has its roots in secrets never fully resolved. Once again, the British monarchy finds itself dragged into the eye of the storm by love affairs that never truly ended. The night of September 18th cast a chilling stillness over Buckingham, the kind that comes before a storm. Charles entered his study with a heavy step, his face saying little, but his eyes revealing everything. The fatigue of age, the weight of the crown, and something new. A flicker of alarm. The head of security appeared, placing a sealed envelope before him. His voice was low, almost hesitant, as though not to disturb the ancient walls. They had phone records, message transcripts, and a handwritten letter. In the past 3 months, the contact marked A1 had appeared 27 times. 5 of those calls were made at midnight. The evidence was undeniable, and the letter contained only one haunting line. We will always be a part of each other's lives. Charles read each page again and again, as though counting old wounds. The numbers were no longer data. They were memories, stirring up decades of choices, regrets, and fractures he thought had closed. He did not lash out in anger. Instead, there was silence, dense, suffocating silence, the kind that comes just before the wave. Finally, he summoned her. His voice, calm but absolute, carried no room for argument. "Come in." Camilla entered the room with a stride that still carried a hint of formality, her hands clenched but hidden inside her familiar cloak. She greeted as usual, forcing a smile into a shield. But the moment Charles opened the file, the performance collapsed. He set the papers down, looked straight at her, and said, "I've just received the report." Not an accusation at first, just a statement, but heavy enough to hold an entire world. She answered calmly, trying to reason her way through. "Andrew is the past, just an old friend. I have the right to stay in touch with people who once mattered." Her voice tried to stay even, yet quivered at the end. Charles lifted a page, holding up transcripts of conversations, late-night calls, the patterns too telling to ignore. He read them out not with fury, but with a cold sadness. "Last month, you spoke for 32 minutes at 14 m. Why?" Camilla replied. "He needed advice, that's all. It was harmless." The words sounded like an attempt to preserve a memory, but the evidence would not let go. Phone logs showed calls made while Charles was inside the palace with others. Messages carried a tone too intimate for advice, and the handwritten letter, with its slanted ink, carried a meaning impossible to dismiss. When Charles read aloud the words, "We'll always be a part of each other's lives," the silence in the room broke with a sigh from a body too burdened by pain. Camilla, so often unyielding in public, looked shaken. She gripped the armrest, her voice trembling. "It was just comfort, Charles, nothing more." His anger did not erupt in shouting, it came through action. He rose, his hands slamming onto the table, the thud making the lamp tremble. That sound shattered the solemn stillness of the room. "Trust is the hardest thing to win back," he said, every word cutting like a blade. The tremor in his voice was not weakness, but the scar of being wounded too many times. Camilla's tears brimmed but were quickly held back, as if even her vulnerability could be turned against her. She tried again to explain. The calls were about mutual acquaintances, old matters, fragments of a life once shared. "We have history," she said, "but history doesn't mean the present." Each word was a plea to drag him back to reason, to deny the sting of betrayal. But against midnight calls, suggestive messages, and a letter written in a hand too familiar, her words lost their weight. Every "just a friend" sounded like tissue paper in a storm. The confrontation dragged on. The air was thick. Every word measured. Every glance dissected. At times, Camilla pushed back. "You can't control every relationship I have." At times, Charles's eyes burned with grief and fury. "I don't want control. I want honesty. I need honesty." The line was drawn here, one demanding trust to protect the throne, the other clinging to a past slipping through her fingers. And then came the decision, cold, clipped, final. "Leave the palace tonight." The words struck with the force of a verdict. Camilla froze in place, suspended in her own moment. She packed her things with a calm that was half defiance, half despair. No appeals, no begging. In her luggage were necessities. In her chest, a tangle of bitterness, shame, and a shred of pride. When the car rolled past the gates, witnesses sighed, some relieved, some sympathetic, and some sensing something darker. The story was not ending, only turning a page. The whispers did not stay within palace walls. An uneasy guard, perhaps too burdened to keep such a secret, let word slip. The press seized it, splashing headlines without mercy, a marriage under the microscope, trust broken, questions about the future of the crown. But beyond the noise, the clearest image remained in that private room. Two figures facing one another, one draped in power but fractured, the other once a source of comfort, now undone by the weight of her past. From the moment the report was laid down at 10 p.m., to the confrontation at 10:15, to the order at 10:30, events had unfolded swiftly but with devastating consequence. Numbers that seemed small, 27 calls, 5 in the night, one handwritten line, a handful of messages, had the force of a hammer blow. This was no longer a quarrel between two people. It was the spark of a storm, raising questions of loyalty, authority, and the future of an entire dynasty. Back in the 1990s, the name Camilla was whispered like a ghost behind every storm in Charles and Diana's marriage. Now, 3 decades later, she once again finds herself at the center of a global media firestorm. With revelations of secret ties breaking into the open, the British press wasted no time turning it into a media feast. Headlines screamed across front pages, "The Queen Consort's secret ties exposed." That single word, exposed, cut through Camilla's already fragile public image like a knife, stirring curiosity, anger, and judgment all at once. The press understood perfectly well that any mention of Camilla and her past with Charles immediately touched Britain's most sensitive nerve, the memory of Diana, which has never faded. Within hours of the leak, every major paper from the Times and the Guardian to the Daily Mail had jumped in. Each had its own angle, but the message was the same. This wasn't just a private scandal. It was a symbolic rupture, exposing the fragility of the monarchy in the eyes of the world. The BBC struck a solemn note, questioning whether the affair could damage the monarchy's legitimacy. The Daily Mail and The Sun, however, went further, dissecting late-night calls, digging into text messages, even airing unverified rumors for dramatic effect. And soon, international outlets, the New York Times, CNN, Le Monde, joined in, turning what began as a royal affair into a full-blown global scandal. Meanwhile, social media turned the story into an explosion. Within just 4 hours, hashtags like #Camilla exposed and #Charles v. Camilla shot to the top of worldwide trends. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, people weren't just sharing the news, they were dredging up old photographs and interviews from decades past. Diana's iconic revenge dress resurfaced, shared millions of times as a symbol of defiance. In stark contrast to Camilla, cast once more as the destroyer of happiness. At the same time, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was pulled into the narrative as Camilla's foil. The public began weighing three women against one another: Diana, the tragic saint; Camilla, the despised villain; and Catherine, the modern embodiment of elegance and stability. Comments flooded in. If Diana were still alive, would Camilla ever have set foot in the palace? And Catherine is Diana reborn. Camilla will always be the outsider. That comparison was no accident. The global press cleverly positioned three women from 3 generations to build a symbolic story. Diana stood for a sanctified past full of pain. Camilla embodied a fractured, controversial present. Catherine represented the future, the monarchy the public wanted to see, refined and modern. Every headline was no longer just reporting events. It was fueling a battle of symbols between these women, igniting an even fiercer public frenzy. The heat of it all could be measured in numbers. In the first 24 hours, over 15,000 articles, reports, and broadcasts appeared across the globe. Google Trends recorded Camilla at its highest spike since 2005, the year she married Charles. Major TV networks cut into programming for live updates. CNN rolled its ticker with "Royal Crisis Unfolds." In the United States, late-night talk shows seized on the scandal for satire, while in Europe, French, German, and Spanish media analyzed the crumbling image of the British crown. Even Asia joined in. Top outlets in Japan, South Korea, and China ran stories under headlines dripping with intrigue. The British royal family's secrets laid bare. The scandal quickly spilled beyond gossip into politics. Commentators asked whether the public could still believe in the sanctity of monarchy when personal scandals kept erupting. Opposition MPs in Britain called for a review of royal funding, insisting taxpayers shouldn't bankroll luxury wrapped in scandal. Monarchists fought back, arguing Charles was human, with human flaws, and that the stability of the nation could not be shaken by one personal crisis. For Charles, the pressure was suffocating. He wasn't only a king, he was a man dissected under a microscope. Reports of him slamming the table during his confrontation with Camilla were described by the press as an uncharacteristic outburst. It left people stunned, questioning whether decades of restraint had finally snapped, and whether Charles had at last lost patience with the woman tied to his life for so long. Camilla, meanwhile, was thrust into the weakest position of her public life. From queen consort to the exposed one, she saw her attempts at defense. Just an old friend, nothing serious, drowned in a tide of outrage. The media dug up the past, clandestine calls of the 1980s, the infamous Camilla Gate tapes. To the public, she looked like a repeat offender, and every printed word reinforced the image. One columnist wrote bluntly, "Camilla has lost her last chance at forgiveness." And then there was Catherine, calm, polished, radiant. She became the counter-image the world wanted to see. International media cast her as Diana's natural successor, a symbol of grace and modernity amidst chaos. A photo of Catherine smiling serenely at a recent event went viral as the perfect antidote to Camilla's embattled presence. More and more, both at home and abroad, she was spoken of not just as a princess, but as the future queen. The contrast was impossible to miss, and it only deepened Camilla's isolation in the storm. What made the incident even more serious was the speed and scale of its spread. Back in Diana's time, the public only learned through newspapers and television. But now, with social media, a scandal is no longer Britain's affair alone. It becomes a global talking point within hours. That global reach means every royal reaction is magnified, dissected under an international lens. Whether Charles stays silent or speaks out, every move is scrutinized down to the smallest detail, while Camilla has virtually no chance of recovering. This storm of public opinion is not just a fleeting scandal. It is the convergence of past, present, and future. The past is Diana, a timeless, irreplaceable icon. The present is Camilla, still branded as the other woman, even as queen consort. The future is Catherine, the hope of a monarchy that appears cleaner, more refined, more trustworthy. And when the global media places these three figures on the same scale, the public leans overwhelmingly toward Diana and Catherine, leaving Camilla as the most vilified name across the world's social platforms. After the shocking night of September 18th, when Camilla was forced to leave Buckingham, the scandal didn't end with her and King Charles. On the contrary, it was like a fire spreading rapidly, consuming what was already a fragile atmosphere within the monarchy. Figures once thought to stand apart were dragged into the chaos, each with their own stance, their own reaction. And it was precisely this variety that made the crisis spiral even further out of control. Andrew Parker Bowles, the man tied to Camilla's past, suddenly became a name splashed across headlines. What shocked the public wasn't some outrageous statement, but his absolute silence. The press hunted him down. Reporters followed his every move. Interview requests poured in, but Andrew said nothing. That silence became its own powerful language. Questions mounted. Why wasn't he denying the rumors? Why no clear statement that Camilla was nothing more than his past? The less he spoke, the deeper the suspicion grew. Neighbors even revealed they had seen strangers delivering envelopes and handwritten letters to his home. One particular letter, leaked to the press, ignited a firestorm. It read cryptically, "Some things can never end. We are forever part of each other's lives." The sender wasn't identified, but the wording was strikingly similar to what had been noted in a security report that once enraged Charles. Every word, every punctuation mark was dissected online, debated endlessly, and turned into viral content. While Andrew stayed silent, Prince William chose to confront the issue head-on. Appearing in public with a cold but resolute expression, he did not shy away from press questions at an official event right after the scandal. He stated firmly, "What matters most right now is transparency and loyalty to the king. I will always protect my father and what my mother left behind." Just a few short lines, but they landed like an arrow, straight at Camilla. The public instantly saw William as Diana's defender, once again affirming him as the rightful heir to the throne. Commentators argued William had seized the moment to strengthen his position, not just in the public eye but also within the royal household. Support for him surged online, with hashtags like Team William and #Justice for Diana trending worldwide. He was praised for finally doing what the public had long wanted, standing up to the shadow of Camilla. In stark contrast, Prince Harry responded with biting irony. In a leaked recording from a private online chat with friends, he was heard saying, "It's strange how history repeats itself. My mother went through the same thing, and now my father's tasting it too. Maybe justice has come at last, but far too late." Those words struck just as hard as the scandal itself. They revealed Harry's deep scars over Diana, his cold distance from his father, and his bitter disdain for Camilla. Analysts said Harry deliberately invoked the old wound to underline the parallel. Diana was betrayed, and now Camilla is cornered, a cruel twist of fate. His remark didn't just outrage the public. It pushed the royal family into an even sharper divide. Inside Buckingham, the palace feels like a silent battlefield. On one side, Charles and William, temporarily united to protect the monarchy's honor and stability. On the other, Camilla, isolated, but still shadowed by unresolved secrets, with Andrew's silence adding fuel to suspicion. Between them stands Harry, almost as an outsider, tossing in barbed comments that deepen the fracture. The once quiet palace now buzzes with whispers, arguments, and furious debates among advisors and family members alike. Some argue Camilla must be shielded to contain the crisis. Others insist this is the perfect moment to finally cut away the thorn that has haunted the monarchy for decades. This polarization only sharpened as the press exploited it to the fullest. Sensational headlines screamed across front pages. William stands up against Camilla. Harry revives Diana's ghost. Andrew Parker Bowles, the silent witness of scandal. In just 48 hours, over 15,000 articles and hundreds of television programs dissected the saga. Every glance, every word, every gesture from those involved was magnified. To the world, it was like watching a live drama, where each character was examined under a relentless microscope. What made it even more significant was that these tensions weren't just family squabbles. They threatened to shake the very image of the monarchy itself. William was cast as the emblem of strength and justice. Harry, branded as the rebel, fueled doubts about the family's unity, and Andrew's silence loomed like a shadow. Every day he refused to speak. The belief deepened that some secret bond still tied him to Camilla. Together, these elements painted a bleak picture. A powerful family riddled with fractures, a royal marriage shaken to its core, and ghosts of the past that refused to rest. This was no longer just about Camilla. It forced the entire royal household to confront the lingering wounds of Diana. As the public followed each twist with bated breath, Buckingham itself sank into suffocating tension. The future of the monarchy more uncertain than ever. From a handful of leaked messages, what began as an awkward marital dispute spiraled into the biggest storm over Buckingham in years. The fateful words, "We are forever part of each other's lives," allegedly written by Camilla to Andrew Parker Bowles, set in motion a chain of events no one could reverse. From that moment, everything slipped out of control. Cold, clinical security reports, 27 phone calls, 5 of them past midnight, cut into Charles's already fragile patience like knives. That fateful night, at exactly 10 o'clock, the detailed report was placed on the king's desk. 15 minutes later, the confrontation erupted behind closed doors. Charles's fury exploded. He slammed the table, his eyes burning with rage as though trying to pierce the wall of silence Camilla had built. Her trembling defense, "He's just an old friend," fell flat. The evidence was undeniable. And at 10:30 p.m., the harsh verdict was delivered. Camilla would leave Buckingham Palace that very night. The scene became the scandal's climax. The palace gates creaked open. A car sped quietly into the night, carrying away the woman once seen as the second most powerful figure after the king. Outside, the cameras captured every frame, and by morning the world woke to a single headline: "The Queen Consort's secret ties exposed." Yet this was more than a story of a broken marriage. It revealed a colder reality, the fractures at the very heart of the monarchy's power structure. Camilla, once seen as Charles's pillar of strength after Diana's death, now stood as his liability, even a threat to the throne's credibility. What began as personal drama had morphed into a political chess match, where every move Charles made was scrutinized, every decision weighed to the finest detail. Looking back, the comparisons were inevitable. Diana, who left the world in lonely tears. Catherine, seen today as her opposite, poised, adored by the public. And Camilla, forced from the palace in the dead of night, shredded in tens of thousands of articles, millions of comments, countless hashtags dominating social media. In just 24 hours, 15,000 stories were published, igniting a media war unlike anything Buckingham had faced in decades. And still, one question lingered. Was Camilla truly a victim of a calculated plot, or the very architect of this earthquake? Were the leaked messages the work of chance, or the opening move of a larger plan aimed squarely at the crown? Or was this simply the inevitable consequence of a marriage built on fragile fragments of the past? The story is far from over. Andrew Parker Bowles' silence, Charles's cold fury, Harry's bitter mockery, William's open defiance. Together, they form a web of tension stretched tight, waiting for the slightest touch to snap. And the public, watching each detail unfold, have become witnesses to a turning point in history. For the first time in decades, the monarchy's standing feels perilously unsteady. So what do you think? Is Camilla nothing more than a pawn caught in a ruthless game? Or is she the spark behind this royal earthquake? Was that midnight expulsion truly the end of her power? Or merely the beginning of a much darker tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because this isn't just the story of a family. It's a mirror held up to power, love, and trust, their strength and their fragility. And perhaps, in your voices, lies the key to unlocking the greatest mystery now looming over the House of Windsor.